Hi, this is Andre. Thanks for checking out Synthosophy. Synthosophy is integrating the wisdoms of history, based on fact and truth, into present culture. The roots of which are synthesis, history, and Sophie, as in philosophy. Sophie being the Greek root, meaning wisdom and knowledge. And note that one of the main ideas of synthosophy is addressing the polarized political climate in the USA. Remember the 100 billion neurons in your brain that create your perception of reality, your neuroreality? Let's consider human evolution, brain function, cognitive bias, confirmation bias, argumentative theory, and the warrior ethos as they may relate to our neuroreality. As earlier mentioned, we evolved over the past 4 million years from Australopithecus to Homo habilis to Homo erectus to Homo sapiens. What was the underlying cause that resulted in Homo sapiens becoming the sole and dominant human species on the earth? One answer could be that cognitive bias, confirmation bias, argumentative theory, and the warrior ethos were survival mechanisms that were genetically selected for and now appear in Homo sapiens. How could these traits be the most useful in the survival and dominance of a species over the last 4 million years? Here's a model of Australopithecus. Let's say this Australopithecus was out gathering fruit and nuts, and she heard some rumblings in the brush. What do you think she would do? She'd probably run back and seek protection in her larger group of Australopithecus. If the sound was made by a predator like a lion, that cognitive bias resulted in her not being killed by a predator. If the sound was made by a non-predator like an antelope, she didn't have to leave for protection. But when in such a situation, if many individuals did not seek protection in a larger group, chances are good a number of them would be killed by a predator, which would then lessen the chances of that species surviving. So evolution for the species genetically selected the cognitive bias shortcut, fear of the unknown. Here's another example of how fear of the unknown may be the result of cognitive bias. If there was a group of Homo habilis looking down from their base and saw that a group of Homo rudolfensi had set up camp along the river, what would Homo habilis do? Should they walk down the ridge unarmed and introduce themselves? Should they just ignore the Homo rudolfensi and go about their daily business, hunting and gathering fruits? Should Homo habilis send a group of armed individuals down and introduce themselves? What would the rudolfensi do? The answers to these questions are not known, but for survival of the Homo habilis, walking up unarmed or ignoring the other group altogether could result in their annihilation. Rudolfensi might attack them. So a fear of the unknown could be a tribal instinct, and in this scenario, Homo habilis may have started projecting their cognitive biases forward, confirmation bias, and making a decision as to what to do upon seeing that unknown Homo rudolfensi tribe. Did they scout the village from afar and see evidence of their fear of the unknown? This would be a confirmation bias. Did they then plan and attack the village? If so, this would explain how Homo habilis survived and rudolfensi did not. And then Homo habilis evolved into Homo erectus, and then us, Homo sapiens. This successful human evolution is the biological and biochemical basis for xenophobia today. Let's review argumentative theory. Argumentative theory was a concept proposed by Hugo Mercier and Dan Sperber in Why Do Humans Reason? Arguments for an Argumentative Theory. In that article, they state, reasoning is generally seen as a means to improve knowledge and make better decisions. However, much evidence shows that reasoning often leads to distortions and poor decisions. This suggests that the function of reasoning should be rethought. Argumentative theory claims that the function of reasoning is argumentative. It is to devise and evaluate arguments intended to persuade. Skilled arguers are not after the truth, but after arguments supporting their views. This explains the notorious confirmation bias. So here then, argumentative theory is an extension of the confirmation bias. This confirmation bias in Homo habilis could have then led to the argumentative theory, an extension of the confirmation bias, as we just said, which may have developed just before or as Homo erectus migrated out of Africa 2 million years ago, and was the premise upon which they formed more complex tribes that allowed them to migrate and inhabit most of Eurasia. Homo erectus survived in Africa until about 300,000 years ago and evolved into Homo sapiens. Perhaps prior to this time, Homo sapiens developed the warrior ethos. I am a warrior, a member of the tribe. I will fulfill my duties to the tribe with selfless service and personal courage. The tribe comes first. I will die for the tribe. With this warrior ethos fully developed 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens exited Africa and then migrated throughout and conquered the entire world. This migration took place over 70,000 years and led to the extinction of all other hominids, leaving Homo sapiens as the sole surviving human species. As stated in The Tribe in Modern Society, these Homo sapiens must have outfought, outhunted, and outbred everyone else. This genetically evolved and evolutionarily selected warrior ethos, perhaps prominent at the exit of Homo sapiens from Africa 70,000 years ago, led to the dominance of this human species and the extinction of all others. These are the hominids that modern humans are descended from, and it may well be because of the warrior ethos. In human evolutionary and genetic terms, then, an Australopithecus developed cognitive bias, and that developed further into Homo habilis and the confirmation bias. And Homo erectus evolved into the argumentative theory, and then shows as the warrior ethos in Homo sapiens. Which means that we as Homo sapiens possess all of these evolutionarily selected and now genetically expressed traits: cognitive bias, confirmation bias, argumentative theory, warrior ethos. What does this all mean? Recall, your brain has 100 billion neurons that create your perception of reality, your neuroreality. But understand that there is a layer of processing below your immediate consciousness, and those 100 billion neurons are processing all the selected information and input you received over your lifetime, both short and long term. And hardwired within your brain, processing all that information, are cognitive bias, confirmation bias, argumentative theory, and the warrior ethos, all of which have a direct impact on how you perceive the world around you, your neuroreality.